First time posting, long time reader, short time member of Reddit. Not sure if this is pro-revenge, nuclear revenge, or nuclear ghosting, but here goes. The players are myself, my fiance, and my fiance's mom. Time frame 2013 to 2016. It has obviously been several years since the incident, and I have literally never told anyone in my new life about this. Tonight, I have some good wine to drink, and I figure I'll let my fingers do the talking. I thought I had met the perfect woman. We met in the last year of college at a party and hit it off instantly. She was a beautiful blonde with sun-kissed skin and could have been a model, think Kate Upton type figure. She was kind, compassionate, sympathetic, a good listener, and had an active life with many friends. She liked my friends, and it was awesome. Over the 3 years we knew each other, and as our friend groups merged, several of our friends began dating each other. It was some of the best times of my life. I was on for a postgraduate degree in finance, and she had a degree in contractual law. This is just to say we ended up being successful in our own rights. But I'm no slouch in the looks department, either -5, 190 lbs, and I like the gym. I wasn't a super athlete, but let's just say I was built. I wasn't very shy and didn't have a lot of pride regarding prior relationships before meeting her. The first evening we met, we were smitten, we talked all night. Then it went to texting, phone calls daily, dates weekly, and then after a year when I started working my new job, she moved in. I loved her family, and her family loved me, mostly her mother, as her father was standoffish as he was to everyone. It was a whirlwind romance. After 2.5 blissful years of overseas vacations, hiking trips, and luxury vacations, I proposed to her. She said yes. I was over the moon. She was doing all the planning for the wedding. We were talking about our futures together, buying a house, children, family trips we were going to take together, and all such things like that. Then it happened. One evening, after we both got home to our apartment, she was a little distant. I think I noticed it right away, as we were always very affectionate towards each other. This would only happen about once a week for the first month after the proposal. Then it became more frequent. I would have been none the wiser, except that I used to listen to a lot of Reddit on YouTube, so I waited and observed. These bouts of ignoring me would only last a couple of hours, then she would be right back to normal. But after 6 months wedding and a year, she was like this almost every night. SX was still great, the relationship with her parents was still great, but over Thanksgiving at her parents' home in Louisville, Kentucky, we lived just north of DC, she was standoffish towards me in front of her mother. Now, her mother was a very observant woman. She pulled her daughter aside to talk to her, and I could hear them arguing. After some heated but muffled words, they returned to the rest of the family and carried on like nothing was going on. I figured I could ask her about it later, and I did. She was not willing to talk about it and asked me to wait till we were home to discuss it. I agreed, as I loved her deeply and thought we could work through anything. Her mother was an older version of her same stunning looks, just a few grays in her long, thick blonde hair. This is important later. Back home, I asked her about it, and she was unwilling to discuss it. When pressed on it for a week, she finally confessed that a guy at her work was trying to get to know her better. She wanted to be forthcoming, so she showed me her phone. As I looked through it, I noticed that all the texts that would have happened during the time she was withdrawing from me were removed. There was nothing untoward in the texts, but I did go into her phone settings and turned on her location tracking, as we shared the same phone plan. I honestly thought it would make me see that she was not doing anything wrong. Was I wrong? That second weekend after Thanksgiving, she had a company Christmas party. I had planned on going but came down with food poisoning and had to back out. She had a girlfriend pick her up from our apartment, as they planned on drinking a lot and had a DD for the evening. We had planned on going out all night, so I told her to have a blast and that I would see her in the morning. As I'm puking my guts out and barely able to get off the toilet for more than 30 minutes, I grabbed my phone and watched her location. First, it was a restaurant, then the venue of the company party, then a bar. None of this alarmed me until I saw her phone stop at a downtown hotel. At this point, I was miserable in more ways than 3, projectile vomiting out my butt, mouth, and now soul. I finally fell asleep due to sheer exhaustion at 2 a.m. At 7 a.m., I awoke and saw she was still at the hotel. At noon, she finally came home and I was on the mend. She loved me up and I asked her about the previous night without mentioning anything about knowing her location. She talked about the restaurant, party, and bar, but then said she went to her girlfriend's house to crash for the evening. First lie. For the next 3 months, she started working later and later -3 to 4 days a week. As I started asking her about it, she became more and more defensive. I talked to her mom one evening when my fiance didn't come home until late. I asked her mom about the Thanksgiving conversation, and she admitted to me that she thought her daughter might be stepping out of our relationship because of how she read her body language. She also said that her daughter was being more and more distant with her in their weekly texting conversations. With all this speculation going on in my mind, I kept it to myself. 2 weeks later at work, I ended up getting a new project at my company that was going to require me to fly to the Midwest Monday through Friday for the next 5 weeks. Starting in 2 weeks, It came with an increase in salary, and as I broke the news to my fiancée, she was delighted for me. I didn't think, though, that she was excited for the same reasons I was. So I went online and ordered 4 motion-activated spy cameras for my apartment. I put one in the living room entry area, one in the kitchen, one in our bedroom, and one looking down our hallway. They were very small and connected to the internet via a hidden network, so they couldn't be spotted on the Wi-Fi network. I secured the cameras with a password and waited. On my first week out, she had girlfriends over the first 2 nights and never worked late once. The third night, a guy came over. I was enraged. I'm sitting there in my hotel room, screaming at the monitor and calling her every name in the book. Then they went all the way first on the couch, then in our bed. She bent in ways for him that I didn't know were possible. What was worse was that as I was watching them get it on, I called her to see how her day went. She heard her phone ringing, held her hand up for him to stop giving her anal, and answered the call. I asked why she was breathing heavily, and she said she was at the gym working out. As soon as the call was over, she went right back to doing the dirty. When I got home Friday evening, I ignored her and went to bed. Early Saturday, I got up and went cycling. I was so upset that I didn't even realize I had biked over 50 miles from our apartment. The furthest I had biked before was 30 miles. But that day I went 105.6 miles. Getting back absolutely exhausted, I showered. Then she and I went out that evening and had fun with our friends and drank a lot. When I got home Friday evening, I ignored her and went to bed. Early Saturday, I got up and went cycling. I was so upset that I didn't even realize I had biked over 50 miles from our apartment. The furthest I had biked before was 30 miles, but that day I went 105.6 miles. Getting back absolutely exhausted, I showered. Then she and I went out that evening and had fun with our friends and had a lot to drink. Is it a breakup if the one you're going to break up with is oblivious? I was bursting inside. Heartbreak, anger, rage, and feelings of betrayal all swirled around in my heart and mind. She, who used to be so attentive, was unaware of all this. It hurt so much because I loved her so much. I finally confided in one of our mutual friends, and he told me that they all knew about it for months. I was finally told they all felt sorry for me, but no one said a damn thing to me, which is why they stopped inviting us out with them. I hadn't noticed it before, but I could look back and see that about 3 months prior, they gradually invited me less and less. So I figured I would try and win her back. The next weekend, I planned the entire weekend as a complete weekend of spoiling her in every way, whining and dining, pampering, massages, rubs, and talking to her about future plans and how much I loved her. I knew I was starting to break through when, after her 4th glass of wine, she started to cry and I could tell the guilt was coming to the surface. I asked her what was wrong, but she choked up every time she tried to speak. I then told her that if she did something in her past or was having some kind of conflict in her mind that she needed to speak to me about, I was more than willing to talk with her about it. And if forgiveness was needed, I was more than willing to forgive and move on. The only words that came out of her mouth were how much she loved me. It actually hurt to hear that from her, as I now had 4 separate videos of her and the other guy in our apartment getting it on. Over the next 8 weeks of traveling to the Midwest, the trips lasted for what would be 10 weeks. I recorded over 41 hours of her having sex with what I found out was her coworker. She never worked late once while I was gone. I tried every weekend to be extra attentive, and each week she got more and more distant. After watching this for 8 weeks, I was done. So I devised a 12-step getaway plan. 1, gather evidence. 2, get her out of the way. In order to execute my plan, I scheduled an exclusive getaway trip for us at an all-inclusive resort in Barbados. She was ecstatic. Then, a week before the trip, I claimed I had to back out and told her to take a friend. I knew it was over when she showed no disappointment that I couldn't go. She scheduled a coworker to go with her. 3, terminate our apartment lease. It would expire 3 days into her trip, and I was the sole signature on the lease. 4, find a job in another town. The company I had been assisting in the Midwest had offered me a job with a slight increase in salary. 5, find a new place to live. I got an apartment in the above-mentioned location. 6, when she is gone, perform the following: take her to the airport, go back home, and pack all her things the same day, Saturday. 7, get a new phone. 8, cancel all social media Monday. 9, separate us completely in regard to finances. I withdrew all the money from our joint accounts and then closed them. I put all her money in an envelope and packed it in her things Monday. 10, have the movers pack all my things up and ship them west Monday. 11, take all her things to her mother's house 600 miles away. All my fiance's belongings fit into the back and bed of my F-250 crew cab Tuesday through Saturday. 12, give her mother the evidence. I didn't want to do anything that was illegal, so I made sure that nothing of hers was missing. It was so hard to pack all her stuff nice and neatly away. I never cried so hard in my life. I have read so many times on Reddit about people saying they will never do it again when caught, but they don't stop. My hope was that she would genuinely confess so we could forgive and move on. She never did. Twice she came really close, but her secret was too hard for her to reveal. Tuesday morning, I left our apartment north of DC for the last time. It took 10 hours to get to her mom's house. What happened when I got there, I was not prepared for. I arrived at her mom's house around 8 in the evening. I figured she would be surprised to see me since I was coming down unannounced. Since they lived in a gated community, I had to buzz her house from the front gate, so she was waiting for me outside when I drove up. I could tell that she had been crying. When I walked up to see her, I asked her what was wrong, and she hugged me, saying that she thought her husband was cheating on her with a much younger, skinnier, and prettier woman. Dumbfounded, I just held her for what was probably 10 minutes. She soaked my right shoulder with her tears and snot. When she finally composed herself, I asked if we could go in and talk. We went in and I asked where her husband was. She indicated that he said he was going fishing with his buddies at a remote cabin an hour away. Then she said he hates fishing. She gave me all the indications that she had picked up on, and apparently it had been going on for about a year. So, doing a little bit of research, we found a credit card hold charge for a 5-star hotel that was only 20 minutes away. One call later confirmed her husband was in fact there for a 4-night stay, cheating with his mistress. 2 peas in a pod, I said. What she responded. 2 peas in a pod, I said again. Your husband is cheating on you and your daughter is cheating on me. That's why I came here to drop her stuff off and move to XXXXX. I showed her the evidence in a binder with screen captures I had made. After looking at the first 3 or 4 pages, she looked at me dumbfounded. We both hugged and cried for a good 30 minutes. At that point, she said, stopped crying and looked at me saying, well, tonight there is nothing we can do about it, except for you and I to knock out these 3 bottles of Moscato and F in every room of the house. She grabbed 2 wine glasses and a bottle of Moscato wine and walked out to their private pool deck saying, are you coming out here or are you going to get effing revenge? Now, I won't go into much detail because I don't want to give you blue balls, but that night, and for the next 3 days, we effed nonstop. I put myself in every hole her beautiful body could offer. I must have come in or on her 25 plus times in that period. After those days were over, we passionately said goodbye, and I drove to my new destination. She kept me informed as to everything that happened when my ex-fiancé got back. The day my fiancé got back was epic. I canceled my phone the morning of the day she got back, so when the plane landed and she called for a ride, it indicated the phone was disconnected. She apparently had her lover take her home. He dropped her off and left. When she came to the door, a strange couple new tenants answered the door, and she freaked out. I can't tell you how many times she tried to call me, because again, the number was no longer valid. She went to her girlfriend's to stay for a time, as her coworker was already married. When she called her mom in a panic, her mom told her that I had come down and dropped off all her things and mentioned that all her money was down there as well, 600 miles away. Her mom didn't tell her that she had F-ed me more in 3 days than my fiancé and I had in the last 6 months. But she did tell her that she knew she was cheating on me and that I had found a new job, a place to stay, and a new career far away from her and all the friends we had. She also told her that her mother was separating from her father due to infidelity. Apparently, she cried for days and took a week off of work, but alas, she found comfort in the arms of her married lover. Her mom never let her know where I was. I had completely cut off that part of my life. The only link I had to that old life was my fiancé's mom, and she has kept our secret to this day. Fiancé was ghosted the most. TL Dr. Fiancé cheated, ghosted her life to start my own, got with her mom,